the New York Knicks. I'm back in the New York groove. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks taking no shorts just like winter.
New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S.
Everybody say go New York, go New York, go!
Go New York, go New York, go!
Hi, guys. I know you guys are expecting to hear Mark and Jay on this podcast, but today, me, Perry, and Myles are going to be doing the show. I know Mark and Jay, they want to record less episodes. They're going to be recording episodes, I think, between every single round. So today we're going to take over the Game 1 and Game 2 recap. Let's Perry, introduce yourselves. Either of you.
What's going on, guys? Perry.
Hey guys, I'm Myles.
First episode.
Yeah, we're all from New York. We all grew up in New York. I unfortunately do not live in New York anymore. I live overseas, but we've all been Knicks fans since we were born. So I think we can get right into it. We want to thank Mark and Jay for letting us do this podcast, get a little trial episode. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. If you guys want to hear more content from us or more episodes, we'd be happy to make them. We just love talking about basketball and love talking about the Knicks.
Hey, guys, just to jump in quickly, Daniel did mess up the name of the email. If you do have any feedback for us, please send it over to nyknickspodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing you guys, and thanks for any feedback that you can give us. And he's going to mess it up one more time towards the end of the podcast. So again, just nyknickspodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you want to say to us.
But I think that's all the logistics. Oh, yeah. If you guys want to drop down what you think of this episode, leave it in the comments on Spotify or email newyorknickspodcast@gmail.com. Let Mark and Jay know what you guys think. But yeah, so Knicks won tonight. Big Game 2 win, 108-102 Knicks. There's a lot of stuff to get into. Knicks go up 2-0 in the series. They didn't play very well. We didn't play very well. And I think we can jump right into it. So what do you guys take away from the game, most of all? There's a lot of things I took away from the game, but I want to hear from you guys.
Go ahead, Perry.
I think biggest thing, as bad as the Knicks played today, I think this game showed just how much better they are than the Sixers. Especially in the first half, it seemed like everything was going right for them and nothing was really going right for us. Cat only played 8 minutes, got out-rebounded. They took more free throws. We shot terrible from three. They shot, I think, around 50%, and it was still only a 1-point game. And then just the same thing in the second half. Like this, just if the scoreboard wasn't on my TV, I would have assumed the Sixers won this game just based on how bad the Knicks played. But still being able to win a game playing like that, I don't think this series goes more than 5.
Yeah, I think Nick Nurse came out with a clear game plan, and that was attack Karl Anthony Towns on the dribble early and often. They were physical with him. They were bumping him. Tyrese Maxey was trying to get an edge on him, and they were earning trips to the line. And just because Towns came out of the game, they didn't stop there.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up. I think the thing that we learned most from this game was what probably knew going into this series was that the Knicks just have better players than the Sixers. I think it was quite clear. The Knicks have a lot better depth, too. When you see Andre Drummond starting a playoff game in 2026, there's got to be some serious questions about the Sixers roster. I know Embiid was injured, but I thought we left Andre Drummond back in 2016. But other than that, I think the thing I took most away from the game, especially from Knicks' perspective, was I really liked the wing play. I thought Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, I think they did really well. I know Paul George started getting hot, especially in the first quarter, but I felt a lot of his shots were coming off scram switches when he was shooting over smaller defenders. And I think I really liked how Mikal Bridges played today. I felt every time the Knicks needed like a timely bucket, Mikal Bridges was the guy that would either get the offensive rebound or get into his mid-range pull-up. In the fourth quarter, too, there was a big bucket with 3 minutes left, I think. And I think if Mikal Bridges can play like he's done the last 3 games, I think the Knicks should be coming out of the East quite heavy favorites.
Yeah, today was a rough 3-point shooting day for pretty much every Knick on the roster. We got a good overall performance, field goal percentage-wise, from OG Anunoby and from Mikal Bridges. And the eye test, they passed that as well. Before the game, I was reading about how Nick Nurse called OG Anunoby a better shooter than Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi Leonard the better 1v1 player. And I thought that was a lot of props to give to OG Anunoby. And then I stopped and considered about the OG Anunoby that we inherited on this team, who was arguably the worst isolation player in basketball. And now he's attacking people with ease.
Harry, anything to add?
Yeah, I have a lot more trust in OG with the ball now. Before, he was, this in my mind, offensively similar to Klay Thompson, where when he put the ball on the floor, I just wanted to turn away from the screen and stop watching. But again, like his mid range a lot, especially in these playoffs, has improved. And his finishing too. One of my favorite things about him is when he's in the paint, it's a dunk. He doesn't go up for soft layups. He's finishing through or over whoever's in his way, which I think is great for the Knicks, especially given how good of a cutter he is, and this new offense where we're focused a lot on cutting off of Towns' passes. I think he fits perfectly into that.
Do you think the game would have been any different if Embiid had played? I know that in game one, the drop coverage on Brunson, it just wasn't working at all. But today, I felt especially in the fourth quarter, you could see just how gassed Tyrese Maxey was, and even VJ Edgecombe. Bro, VJ had what, 2, 3 wide open threes that he missed. And Tyrese Maxey also had not a ton of shots, but a decent amount of shots I know that he can make. But it just looked like they were gassed. Like both of them, they looked like they were gassed. Even Paul George, he didn't really do much in the fourth quarter. I know Embiid has a lot of his own problems, but if Embiid was there, I think that maybe the Sixers could eke out this win. You guys think that or no?
I think it's a totally different ball game with Embiid in the lineup. I think that it takes away a lot of opportunities that we saw Paul George knock down a lot of difficult shots. We saw VJ Edgecombe really show some promise off the dribble. Hell, we even saw a lot from Kelly Oubre tonight. That's one of the most promising performances from any Sixer tonight, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think the game is even close to what it was today with Embiid. Embiid also slows the game down for the Sixers a lot. Which, again, that just completely changes their game plan. But I also do think the Knicks looked pretty tired, especially towards the end. Those 2 threes that Edgecombe missed. There was another open three, I want to say, from Oubre. We just were not playing much defense towards the end of the game, especially we gave a couple of offensive rebounds as well. Mike Brown, I think, coached a pretty good game. He did call a good timeout right after that. He called his rotations, I feel like. Yeah, multiple good timeouts. I think his rotations were good. The defensive schemes we had were also good. I also think McHale played great defense on Maxey. And I think the small ball that we were forced to play went better than I expected. There were a lot of offensive rebounds given up to Adem Bona, who really should not be killing us, I don't think. But when your big guys both get, 3-4 fouls in the first half, you kind of have to improvise. And no Mitch, yeah.
Yeah, 6 offensive rebounds from Bona alone, and he and Barlow each blocked 2 shots. They brought a lot of energy tonight, and Barlow was particularly switchable tonight. Yeah. He bothered Brunson on a couple drives. He bothered our wings on multiple shot attempts. He was omnipresent in pretty much every facet of the game until he had a silly turnover at the end.
Do you think Paul George has cracked the league's resting policy that you just got to take some banned substances, get a 25-game break, and come back looking right and fit for the playoffs?
I can't really see many other players trying to emulate that, but he's been very good in these playoffs. He's been shooting great from 3 as well. But yeah, I don't see that as better
than he was. So much better than he was last year. It's actually like 2024 PG. Like, this is the guy the Sixers thought they were signing.
Yeah.
But
I also,
yeah.
One more thing about Mike Brown, which I like, the first 2 minutes of the fourth quarter were pretty bad for the Knicks. A lot of turnovers. We didn't score. A couple of missed shots. He immediately puts Brunson and OG back in. Like right after that, we went on, I wouldn't say a run, but our offense definitely picked it up, which I liked a lot. Especially the first couple of games against Atlanta, we had a lot of non-Brunson and Cat minutes, which were not very good for us, and I like how he's kind of going away from that. We did have to play that a little bit with Towns' foul trouble, especially in the first half, and that's where Bridges came in pretty big, especially in the second quarter. He kept us close, which honestly seemed like what our goal was until we could get Brunson and Cat back in the game.
Would you say that Nick Nurse or Mike Brown outcoached today? Who was the better coach today? We say Mike Brown outcoached Nick Nurse?
I don't think anyone outcoached anyone. I think that today was a lot of poor shot attempts from contested triple threat 3-point attempts, and Paul George was getting hot. He knocked down 5 of his 13 threes. I think that's 38.5%. But the problem with Paul George is, and this has been the frustrating thing for most of his career, it's that for all these tough shots that he knocks down, he took 18 shots today and he had 19 points. He only got to the line for 1 free throw attempt and he missed it today. You look up at the scoreboard and, he's just not scoring at the same level that you'd expect a Hall of Famer like him to score at.
Yeah. I also think that sort of the way the game was played, I felt that the best way to describe it, using one word, would be chaotic, especially the first half. It just felt like missed shots, bodies on the floor, people crashing the glass, fast breaks, 2-on-1, and that's the kind of game that more so suits Maxey and VJ. Paul George wants to get the ball, He wants to size up. He wants to get smaller guards in the post. And he wasn't hitting a lot of his post shots today. I can't lie. Like I thought that this would be one thing that the Sixers could really attack, especially with no Embiid, if the Knicks were going to be switching so heavy and doubling Maxey, with Brunson ending up on PG a lot. I felt that Paul George, he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to be able to get to the rim. But the way the game was played today, I can't really see that being much of a factor the rest of the series.
Speaking of a fast-paced, chaotic game, that also seems like the kind of game that Josh Hart would thrive in. And he did not play well tonight. He played 44 minutes. Not quite sure why. Very angry at the refs, very focused on the refs as opposed to the actual game. His tech was pretty bad. The foul that he was complaining on, Paul George had the ball in between his own legs and behind his body. And Hart basically dove in between them to get the ball. And then he got mad that he was called for a foul and got a tech.
He wasn't going to get a second one.
He should have.
A lot of times it was on the edge.
Yeah, Josh Hart. The one thing that Josh Hart does really well is when he gets that ball on the defensive glasses, he gets down the court. And for any kids watching, that's how you got to do it. You got to push the pace. And tonight, it didn't really matter as much because without Embiid on the floor, they had guys that were getting back to defend. And so it was maybe like a 3-on-3 fast break half the time. And we got a couple nice shot attempts out of it. I think Brunson got a 3-pointer early in the game that he missed out of it, but didn't wind up amounting to much tonight. No free throw attempts from him.
Well, we spoke about the game for 10 minutes and we haven't mentioned Brunson once. He had 26 and 8, but I don't think this was like prime or vintage Brunson. He had a couple of big shots towards the end of the game, but I didn't feel like Brunson was completely at his best. I thought he had a solid game and he gave the Knicks what they needed. But do you think that do you think the Knicks need Brunson to play better in Philly, or?
Yeah, I think that Brunson didn't have his same touch that he normally has around the basket, and I think that caused him to settle a little bit for some mid-range jump shots, some of which he knocked down, but only 1 for 5 from 3 today. 26 points, 1 rebound, 6 assists, 3 turnovers. Today was a very mediocre Brunson game, and it kind of fit the level of play that we saw from Brunson in the second half of the season, where it wasn't really our typical Jalen Brunson, but it didn't really seem to matter.
I think he definitely does need to play better. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the 2-1-1 theory. I'm not sure who came up with it, but it's basically in a playoff series, your best player wins you 2 games, your second best player wins you 1 game, and then you have either your third best guy or your best defender or some sort of role player win you that last one. I think what's good about the Knicks is Cat can win you 2 games, Brunson can win you 2 games, Anunoby has already won them a few games this playoffs. And that's what I think it'll go back and forth depending on the series. I think Brunson was amazing game 1. I mean, the whole team was amazing game 1. But I think against a team like Philly, especially with Embiid in the lineup, it's going to need to be Brunson that has those big scoring games. Because I would imagine they're going to start doing something about Towns because he was by far the best player in the game today.
The thing that I found interesting though was at the end of the game when the Sixers started putting Paul George on him, started putting the wing on him. I did feel like they were starting to get Cat not being as aggressive as he would like. I think that's something that Mike Brown has to look at when someone like Paul George is matched up against Cat. I know Paul George is an Hall of Fame defender, all NBA level defender, but if Cat has that same level of aggressiveness he has in the fourth as he does at the start of the third, I think that the end of the game isn't even up and down. Like, it's not in jeopardy. I'm not sure. I think this has been a problem for the Knicks for a while now. And same thing even last year when you're putting a wing on Cat. For some reason, Cat doesn't get in his head that he needs to drive the basketball. But I think if Cat can do that, and that takes away having Paul George on Cat or having a wing on their big, I think that's like going to be the main adjustment that the Sixers are going to go to a lot in Game 3.
Yeah, Daniel, I feel like some of that was because of Towns' foul trouble, why he dialed it back a little bit. And what was so curious about tonight and last game is, does he have a single offensive foul in this series for someone who I'm pretty sure has led the NBA in offensive fouls multiple seasons? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't remember one.
Tonight he didn't. I'm not sure about game 1.
I think he did.
Also, I think when he has a smaller guy on him, I'd like to see the Knicks getting him the ball closer to the basket instead of him catching it at the 3-point line and driving. He did one possession take Paul George down into the post. I think towards the beginning of the fourth quarter, he completely shoved him out of the way and just missed a dunk.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's a good shot. It's a shot that I would be happy with the Knicks taking as many times as they could, of course. But I think that should be the biggest adjustment when we do have a wing on him. Or just getting Josh Hart out of it.
Yeah, would you want to see some more McBride minutes? Or I know they tried Shamit today, but would you want to see some more McBride minutes for the Hart minutes or some more Shamit minutes? Or what do you want to do with that?
Um, I would like for McBride to get back to who he was before he
Mhm.
missed time. I feel like he hasn't really been that consistent of a shooter. I did like his defense on Maxey today. I also like Bridges' defense on Maxey. I also just watching Jordan Clarkson play is like really fun to me because just like that doesn't look like Jordan Clarkson out there. It's a offensive rebounding tough defender now, and not 15 point per game off the bench kind of guy. So I am a fan of all three of Clarkson, Deuce, and Shamit. Again, Shamit's another one. If he was playing the way he was before his injury, I would like to have him out there. There were times, especially towards the beginning of the season, where a lot of Knicks fans wanted Shamit in the starting lineup over Josh Hart. That's
Yeah.
how good he was playing, and just how well he fit.
Yeah, I was one of those people too, because the problem with Landry Shamet is, and the same thing with Deuce McBride, is that when you don't put them in positions to succeed, they become rather, I don't want to say complacent, because that implies that they don't really care and they're not really in it, but they're not as aggressive and they lose some of that confidence to just fire it. And Jalen Brunson, in his heliocentric offense, it helps to have that knockdown shooter in the corner, and oh man, do Shamet and McBride knock down that shot, just like OG does off that Brunson kick.
Excuse my lack of deep basketball analysis here, but McBride has zero bag whatsoever. Every time he's dribbling the ball, he's going nowhere, and it's either ending in a step back three or a pass. And for a guy who, for a guy who's dribbling the ball as much as he is, I would like to see a little bit more out of him. Especially, and towards the end too, I think it was the possession where Hart hit his three. It was a lot of McBride just dribbling against Paul George and not really going anywhere, and then us getting bailed out by a Hart three.
Yeah, I have this
What do you
theory, and I want to hear what you guys think about it. I think that Deuce McBride's ball handle has been rusty since coming back from injury after missing that much time.
I mean, I don't think it's much of a theory as it's just facts. It's also when someone comes back from injury, when someone that's sort of such a rhythm player like McBride is, like not having been away from playing basketball for a decent amount of time and then being thrust back, you need like people like role players like that. They always need as much time as possible. But I think that that's not much of a theory. I think that's just genuinely what's happening. What did you guys think of Jose Alvarado today? Do you think that we want to see him get more minutes, less minutes, perfect amount of minutes?
I know Myles very
Perry, I'll let you
passionate
start.
about
You
Jose.
could start, Perry.
I actually was just going to mention him. I liked his defense on Maxey. I know Richard Jefferson was going on for a good couple minutes about Maxey's post game and how he
Oh my
likes
God,
seeing
that was
small
oh
balls
my
all
God.
over the post-game.
But he mentioned who did he mention? Sam Cassell?
Sam Cassell, Gary Payton. Like, okay, if we're turning Tyrese Maxey into Sam Cassell on offense, I'm fine with that. Or if just in general, if he's taking those deep post fadeaways, I love that. Even if he's making those are shots that I'm like happy with us giving up. I'd much rather that than him going downhill and getting a layup or putting pressure on the rim. I know Alvarado, especially towards the beginning of the Hawks series, has his rough moments. I mean, he's not really the most skilled basketball player, if we're being completely honest, but I do
He's
like
a Hawk player.
I do like a cool like 6 to 8 minutes from him every night to give a little bit of energy, a little bit of defense, a little bit of full court pressure, which is something I don't think the Knicks do enough. I guess against
Yeah.
Maxey and his speed, it's probably not the best series for that, but I would like some more defensive pressure from us, like in the backcourt.
It's a little tough because I feel like when we tried that against Indiana with another quick guard that's not afraid to generate quick, high volume 3-point shots, like with Halliburton and with Maxey, I feel like that kind of strategy just doesn't work. But I was wondering, so my opinion with Alvarado, Perry knows, is that I think Alvarado is a Hart player, and I think we have a lot of heart and hustle in the lineup between Josh Hart, between Jordan Clarkson, Jose Alvarado, and I think Alvarado is a 1 or 2 minute at a time, bringing a spark. Like Perry said, apply some full court pressure in general, and he played good defense on Maxey tonight. But I think that in moderation is when Jose Alvarado is most effective.
Yeah, I mean, we saw at the start of the fourth quarter, like Perry mentioned, when the Sixers started, what did they make 2 buckets in a row? The Knicks offense was stagnant. Immediately, he got Jose Alvarado out of there, and I think that says a lot about. I don't want to see Jose having minutes in the fourth. Really, I get that Brunson needs to rest, but I think the Knicks have a deep enough roster where Jose Alvarado can be a second, third quarter, end of the third quarter, start of the second quarter sort of energy guy, as you guys are saying. In
Yeah.
terms of what else we saw, do you think that Sixers have any sort of buttons that they can press, any adjustments that you think they're going to make?
Yeah,
I
I don't
think
know. Go ahead. You go first, Perry.
I think more of just attacking Brunson and Towns. If they can get Towns in foul trouble like they did today, they were definitely more successful with him off the court. Um, Another thing, just on the defensive end for them, Edgecombe is. I think he's a good defender. I think he's playing fine on Brunson, and Brunson did not have a great game today. I think they should have Oubre on Brunson a lot more. Brunson struggles a lot more with length and height, and Edgecombe, especially towards the end of the first quarter, had a couple of rookie mistakes, we could say. He fouled Brunson a full 94 feet away from the hoop right as the ball got inbounded. There was an inbounds pass where Porty got a dunk while Edgecombe was guarding the inbounder. He was not in the right position. He wasn't guarding the cut at all. There were just a couple of young mistakes that you would expect out of a rookie, but I think Oubre also did a pretty good job against Brunson. I mean, Brunson still averaged, like 40 in that last series a couple years ago, but I think Kelly Oubre, who called himself a knockdown shooter, by the way, after the first quarter on national TV, should be more focused on stopping the Knicks' best player.
You don't like him
Today,
kissing the crowd after every single shot he makes?
I think he needs to relax. He bothers me a lot.
hey, whatever the Sixers did tonight on Brunson worked better than anything they've tried in the last several games, because I know that Brunson's 35-point performance in Game 1 actually brought down his career points per game average in the playoffs against the Sixers.
I think from the Sixers, I think obviously it's a completely different game when Embiid comes in, but I just right now, the way that the game is being played, if they're playing such a fast-paced game, all right, their two guards are well suited for it, but they just don't have the depth. They really don't have the depth to be able to play a full 48 minutes. And you saw that today. What did you say? They scored 12 points in the fourth quarter?
Yep, 12 points.
They just don't. Yeah, they just maxi played the entire second half, and bro, by the end of the game, like I said before, he looked gassed. If they're gonna play this chaotic style, they're just not gonna have the legs to be able to play and to succeed in it. I think the Knicks' depth is just so crucial in the series. What do you guys think of the old Knicks boy Quentin Grimes?
I'll start there because that was actually where I was going to go with it. Man, what a disappointment Quentin Grimes has become really in the NBA, and I think there's a lot of potential for him still. He had an awesome year last year. He had an awesome year for the Knicks back before Dante DiVincenzo took his starting gig. But in these big moments, it's always the missed layups or the missed wide open three-point jump shots for someone that's historically a knockdown shooter. He really has not ascended to the spotlight when given the opportunity.
I saw him pass up on a couple of open threes in favor of drives. And for a guy of his caliber from behind the arc, I think that's just completely unacceptable from him. I've been a huge Grimes fan since we drafted him, but like Myles said, it's super disappointing the way he's turning out. He is very good towards the end of the regular season when all starters are resting, though. I guess that's his thing.
For me, the most disappointing thing is when I think of Quentin Grimes, I think that this is someone that can be on the level of perimeter defense of someone like Cason Wallace. Like, he has the length, he has the tools defensively, he can do it for stretches, but I don't think he's made any sort of defensive impact in this series at all. At all. He's not guarding Brunson. He's not really you don't even notice him on the defensive end. He's quite athletic. He'll be able to get an offensive rebound. He'll be able to dunk the ball. But when I thought of Quentin Grimes, especially after his second or third year on the Knicks, I felt that this is a guy that's at the very, like, his floor is going to be a player that's going to get paid at least $20 million a year playing defense and being able to shoot 40% from three. So I think that either he's got to step it up or they've got to start cutting his minutes, because there is too much Grimes for me from the Philly perspective.
Yeah, I think if you're Philly, you've really just got to hope you can build his confidence up, because we're talking about a guy that only fell as far in the draft as he did because of off the court issues. We're talking about a guy who went to Houston and was a high volume knockdown 3-point shooter and a two-way player. He was starting it's just, who would have thought this is where we'd be after what we saw initially with the Knicks with Quentin Grimes?
You know who I liked a lot from the Sixers perspective, and I think this is where they're going to go in Game 3 and 4. I think they're going to be playing a lot more Dominic Barlow. I felt he was the best out of their three centers today, especially when he first came in. I think he got 1 or 2 buckets straight away. He's quite long, versatile. Sometimes his decision making isn't ideal. You don't want to be given the ball in the short roll and really passing out of it. We saw when he threw the ball out of bounds. But I think that's where the Sixers can actually like play a lot more minutes and give a lot more minutes to. And do you think that Dominic Barlow is actually going to be a factor in game 3 and 4?
I think he should be. And what was craziest to me, he did play very well on Brunson. Brunson had a couple shots, tough shots against him towards the end. But there was no, Edgecombe was not fighting through the screens at all. I don't know if that was fatigue or what I thought was just the Sixers were okay with it and they trust his perimeter defense. And for good reason, he played very well. Brunson hit a couple, or again, like I said, hit a couple of tough shots. He blocked a 3 from Anunoby. I think, especially the way the Knicks are trying to attack the Sixers' slower centers, I think he gives them a nice change of pace. And on offense as well, he's much more mobile, and he can get down the court and play that faster pace offense that the Sixers want to play.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is if you put Barlow on the court as the center is that it creates a lot of switchability on defense between Paul George, Kelly Oubre, and Barlow, because even Edgecombe is rather switchable as far as a shooting guard can be.
Well, let's say you start Barlow, right? We know Cat is aggressive primarily at the start of games or at the start of halves or at the start of quarters. Do you think if Cat gets the ball, and you know how aggressive he gets when it's at the start of games, he gets the ball and that's 2-3 quick drives. Do you think Barlow's even going to be able to stop that at all? I just see him picking up 2 quick fouls, and then the Sixers are still in the same predicament.
I don't think they put him on Towns. I think they did what they did in the fourth quarter, and they have George guard Towns, and they have Barlow on Josh Hart and kind of have him roam, help, switch, and do just whatever he can. I don't think he's a one-on-one matchup for Towns.
That's what I was thinking exactly. But then the devil's advocate part of me why you can't do that is the Sixers, one of their redeeming qualities tonight, and they had more to redeeming qualities than the Knicks if you ask me, but they wound up corralling 39 rebounds compared to the Knicks' 37 rebounds. And we're talking about a Knicks team that does not frequently lose the battle on the glass. So if the Knicks are going to beat them on the glass, and I can't imagine that Philly's going to be able to extend this series very long.
If Mitch is healthy for game 3 and 4, or for game 3, do you think you'd like to see some double big lineups with him and Towns, like we did last year in the playoffs? Or do you think it's not the series for that with how small the Sixers are playing?
I don't see any reason why not. I think that Mitch and Towns together is a dominant strategy where it doesn't really matter what what the opposing team does, that they're going to affect the game in their set ways, and they really complement each other. And Towns is even acting as a guard to get the ball to Mitch underneath the basket, whether it's in the lob form or in the pass form. I think that the one problem I have with these Mike Brown double big lineups is that they always include Josh Hart. And Josh Hart's a great player, but he's not, even if he has a decent three-point percentage, he's not a shooter.
I agree. I think in Atlanta as well, I saw a lot of Mike Brown staying away from that because of the matchups that he didn't like. And like you're saying, Daniel, I don't think that there's any series that isn't right for a lineup that's so dominant. We also did see, again, in that Atlanta series, we saw him play that double big lineup with Hart and Alvarado on the court at the same time, which doesn't – and then also Mikal, I remember being on the court one specific time who was shooting tour date. No, he wasn't even taking enough shots for it to be tour dates, but he was shooting terribly. It was almost as if he wanted that lineup to fail. I think you surround those two with a couple of shooters, no non-shooters. I think the rebounding, the defense, and the offense, all three, I think – are going to be just too much for Philly to handle.
Yeah, exactly. There's no excuse for putting out a lineup where Mikal Bridges is the second best three-point shooter on the court.
I think the thing is, I think that if Mitch is going to get significant minutes in games 3 and 4, I think the first thing Nick Nurse is going to do is make Mitchell Robinson prove it at the free throw line, especially when we saw in game 1, what did he go, 0-4? I think that if he's going to get significant minutes, he has to start making at least 50% of his free throws, 40 to 50%. Otherwise, it's just untenable, especially on the road. You know that game 3, it's do or die for the Sixers. You know the crowd's going to be up for it. Well, you don't know because there might be a lot of Knicks fans there, but presume not. Let's presume there are a lot of Sixers fans. I don't know if I trust Mitchell Robinson to go out there and make 50% of his free throws. As good of a player as he is, as much as he offers on the glass, offensively and defensively, and the rim protection that the Knicks need, I just don't know if I'd be able to trust him to be able to make his free throws.
Well, that's why I think you come out with that lineup at the beginning of the second, at the beginning of the fourth. Because if they're going to hack Mitch, then they're going to get themselves into the bonus, or they're going to get the Knicks into the bonus with 8 minutes left in the quarter. And then you can sit Mitch down, and you can have Brunson and OG and Cat and whoever attack and take advantage of the fact that we're going to get free throws for however long we're going to get free throws for. And I've seen a lot of people say that I've seen people honestly say to start Mitch and bring Cat in after like 4 or 5 minutes, which I think is crazy, but I like the idea of playing Mitch earlier in quarters, so the fouls aren't as much of an issue.
Yeah, I think between all those little 2-minute spans at the end of quarters where they're not allowed to intentionally foul, and between coming out of the second and fourth quarter with a lineup with Mitch in it, I think there's enough minutes in there for him to get the amount of minutes that Mike Brown normally allots for him. So I don't really think that we have to do anything about the hacking on Mitch strategy. But if we are going to put Mitch in situations that they're going to be hacking him, then I wouldn't mind us giving him a chance to shoot his way through it and take that minute or two to give Brunson a rest. If you're going to sit Brunson 7 minutes like you did tonight, why not have those minutes be the ones that the game's really dragged out?
The thing, I have a bit of a niche analogy, but in 2017, when the Thunder were playing the Rockets in round one, Andre Robertson was like a plus 15 on off. He was the only person in the series that could guard Prime Harden. And eventually Mike D'Antoni figured out that this guy's confidence was so shot at the free throw line that whenever he would foul him, he'd be shooting 20, 30%, and that it was just untenable. And he was played off the floor. So I'm sort of worried, or sort of curious, I guess the Knicks are in a much better position than the Thunder that year, that if Mitchell Robinson isn't going to be making those free throws, and I don't think Mike Brown is the coach that has like an extreme amount of patience for stuff like that. I don't think he'll like let him, he won't let him miss. Like we saw in game one, he only shot 4 free throws. He won't let him miss 4, 6, 8. He won't let him shoot that many free throws. He'll just say that his confidence is shot, and then he'll take him out. And I think it's also a bigger question of what you do with Mitch going forward, I guess, past this season. When is his contract up?
Next
Does anyone
year,
know?
I believe. I know that the Knicks are in a little financial handicapped spot where they're most likely going to either have to choose between extending Mitch or extending Deuce, or maybe they'll trade one of Bridges or Hart in order to clear that money. So eventually they're going to have to make a tough choice. But luckily that day is not today.
You have anything you want to add, Perry?
Regarding Mitch, I think he is a free agent this offseason.
I felt so
Is he?
too, but I wasn't sure.
Which I love Mitch. I've been a huge fan since he started on the Knicks, the longest tenured Knick. Also just really funny as a person. I do hope we keep him. And honestly, when it comes between him and McBride, I think McBride is much more replaceable than Mitch is. Like, I know this is more of a playoff recap than it is like a Knicks future podcast, but I just want to throw that out there. I feel like there are a lot more Deuce McBrides in the league than there are Mitchell Robinson.
In fact, do
Yeah.
you know how Mitch became a Knick and what trade?
It's the Carmelo trade.
Thunder.
Yeah, it is
Carmelo
a Carmelo
trade.
trade. Second round pick from the Thunder that went from the Bulls to the Thunder, and the Doug McDermott and the Taj Gibson trade. But that's a bit of a fun fact, but we don't need to dive into cap semantics yet when we're up 2-0 in the second round. But I think from what we learned in these first 2 games, quickly, I think it's safe to say that the Knicks are in the significant driver's seat going into games 3 and 4. Do you think that this series even goes back to New York?
I think it does. I think I don't see the Knicks sweeping any series ever, just because that's who the Knicks are as a team. I think we should comfortably close it out in 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the talent gap in every sport closes by the day, and that's why I think we're seeing less sweeps than ever, because the worst players in the league are closer and closer to the best players in talent, and so you get these hot role player nights. Like, let's not forget, just 1 year ago, in a tough, gritty series against Detroit, Cameron Payne won us a playoff game.
Yeah. I also think overall, like as a whole defense, these playoffs has just been much, much better. The drop in offensive rating, I saw this earlier today, so I guess today's game doesn't count. But overall, throughout the NBA, the drop in offensive rating from the regular season to the playoffs this year is -4.5, which is the biggest of any regular season to playoff in NBA history. And the drop in points per game is almost 9, which is the largest since the 70s. I'm sure Orlando and Detroit and Toronto had a little bit to do with that. But overall, I think defense, especially for the Knicks, they haven't given up over 110 points in any games these playoffs so far.
Do you
And
enjoy
a
that?
big
Do you
reason
enjoy
that's
the
Mitchell
style-
Robinson. Sorry, Daniel.
Do you
Go
enjoy
ahead.
this
What were you
style of
saying?
basketball? Do you enjoy the style of basketball? This sort of playoffs that are so defensive focused, grit and grind, having to fight for every single point.
Yeah, I would say I like it a lot more than 136 to 134 kind of game, where it's just more of a regular season kind of game, just jacking threes. like Boston likes to do.
Every time we hear one of these NBA stars talk to the press about the Knicks and they're asked about the matchup, they always cite the Knicks' physicality. So I'm all for a more physical game because it's going to allow us to crash the glass and it's going to allow us to play defense.
I mean, back in my day, we had defensive players like Gary Payton, Sam Cassell.
That's what we need more of in the league. Defensive-minded point guards with a post game.
I think that if I was to give my predictions for how these next two games are going to go, I think the Knicks win a close one, Game 3 in Philly. Then I think they basically, Game 4, they get blown out, as you see a lot when teams go up 3-0. They just, not tank Game 4, but they don't come out with any intensity or urgency. Then there's going to be some talk of the Sixers are down 3-1. Can they come back down from 3-1 again? And then I think the Knicks beat them handily in Game 5, even though I think Embiid will probably be back for Game 3. Do you guys agree with that?
I'm fully expecting Embiid to come back and be at his strongest self that we're going to see the rest of the way for him, because there's no way is he just going to sit on the sidelines and watch his team go down 3-0 if he's in any physical condition to play.
One thing I want to see from the Knicks, and I think in Game 1, the Sixers love that play where Maxey brings it up, he throws it to Embiid and comes off the double screen with the other guard. I think the Knicks did a great job stopping that. But especially today, I really liked how when the Knicks would blitz Maxey off the screen at half court, and then they would have either Hart or OG or Bridges or whoever run up from the corner and take away Maxey's first option. We got a couple of turnovers off of that. And I think that's the biggest difference between a guy like Maxey and Brunson. Aside from that play where he just kind of stopped moving at half court and turned it over towards the end of the game, I think Brunson dealt with the blitzes a lot better. He was expecting that help defense to come and take away his first read, and he was able to throw better cross-court passes as opposed to what Maxey was doing. And I think that just comes with experience. I don't think Maxey's decision-making as a point guard is there yet to where he can punish us the way Halliburton did when we would play up on his screens. I also think it was very similar with Jalen Johnson last series. I don't think his decision-making is there, and I like how the Knicks are attacking both of those younger guys and using that to their advantage.
Yeah, I don't understand why Maxey is giving up his dribble just because we press him with two guys near half court. Like, what made Halliburton so effective in those situations was he would attack the guy's hip of the guy running the double team, and then there was someone out of place in addition to that guy, or he was going to the free throw line because that guy was V-lining at him.
Yeah, but we also don't need to relitigate the Pacers series because the Knicks kind of shot themselves in the foot twice. And both games 1 and 2. I'm not even talking about the crazy shot. I think the crazy shot is the crazy shot. It was a crazy collapse. But in overtime, I think that's something that might haunt me forever as a Knicks fan. At overtime in Game 1.
I need to make a comment, and it has nothing to do with the Pacers. I want to give a quick shout out to RJ Barrett for that Game 6 buzzer beater to extend the series to 7. And man, it's a shame we didn't get any Emmanuel Quickly that series, because we could see the Raptors on the other side of that series playing Detroit right now if we had.
I could be seeing some 70-60 basketball games too. But real quick, if we want to go back to that trade, how are you feeling about that trade? Are we all happy with OG on the Knicks? Are we happy with, I think the Raptors also I think it's one of those rare cases where you can see that both teams, if you offered them a chance to swap the trade back, they wouldn't take it. What was that? What did the deal end up being? RJ, Emmanuel Quickly, and how many first rounders? 2? And
I don't think
swap?
any. I think it was. Did we even give up? Yeah, I feel like it was straight up. Let me look it up.
Maybe on.
But no, I definitely would not do that trade back.
I don't think even the Raptors would do that trade back.
I think
for contractual reasons they were in a position to, and I think because of Anunoby's age they were all right with it. But because OG wasn't going to sign an extension, so they were kind of handcuffed in that sense. But here I have the trade. It was the two of them and a 2024 second round pick, who I have no idea who that became.
But RJ Barrett is also Canadian, so you have to factor that into account too. And RJ Barrett had a really great first round. I think not that this is a Raptors podcast, but that Ingram contract and that Pirtle contract, that's just mind-boggling decisions to me. They might have 3 of probably not 3 of the top 10 worst contracts in the league, but 3 out of the top 50. And I don't know how you want to build. They have so many good, exciting young players, and they're just ruining their entire core building potential, even though they had a successful season. But I don't understand how they're planning to build a contender when they have Jakob Pirtle, Ingram, and Quickly making $100 million. I don't think that's a viable contender building strategy.
Yeah, it's very disappointing that Jakob Poeltl has struggled with injuries like he has, because at the time that they paid him, he was really one of the most underrated role players in the NBA.
I don't know what the rush was to get that extension done because it doesn't even come in. I think it comes in next season. And they're just and he already had a terrible season this year. But I think that's enough Raptors. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on games 1 and 2 before we move on to some other series? Any takeaways?
I just want to mention, and this was something we talked about during the game, overall in the league, there is a lot, and this was Josh Hart pretty much all game today. There's a lot of complaining to the refs that the Knicks used to struggle with a lot. That used to be a big thing from Towns, a big thing from a lot of the team, and I don't know what happened, but that's definitely died down. Even the Sixers, the second quarter, the refs did not call a foul on them until there was like 2 minutes and 30 seconds left
and they were still complaining.
Yep, clear foul. Bona basically pushed Josh Hart onto the ground, and he immediately starts complaining. I think there were 4 fouls called on the Sixers in the second, 3 or 4, and they complained after every single one, and all of them were incredibly clear fouls. That's just something I just don't like to see as a fan.
I actually want to build on this point. Like we were talking before the podcast, I like Maxi's game, but I feel every single time he either misses a shot or the ball gets stripped, he immediately puts 2 hands up and looks at the ref. Immediately. I know that people like Brunson, SGA foul bait a lot. SGA a lot more than Brunson, but I have much more of an issue when people, every time they make a mistake or every time they miss a shot, when they start looking for excuses. I think it genuinely makes me just dislike Maxey. And it's not the same Maxey that we saw 2 years ago. 2 years ago when Maxey played the Knicks, I think a lot of Knicks fans would say that they really liked Maxey and they liked the heart that he played with. They had a much bigger problem with Embiid. But right now, I really dislike Maxey.
Hey, Perry, you want to weigh in before I do, or no?
I mean, I did kind of bring it up, but just to go back to the foul baiting, the flopping, all that, Brunson does not do that as much, especially anymore, as people like to think that he does. I know Embiid said something to the media after the game. Kelly Oubre said something about Brunson's head being big. I'm not sure how serious that was, but especially coming from a team.
We saw VJ in game 1 go to the ref, and what did he say? He went to the ref and
that's
said,
all he's doing, and he started mocking the flopping. Brunson is not the kind of flopper that people think he is, and especially a team that has Joel Embiid, who is 7'2", 280 pounds, falling every time he touches the ball. I don't think that's really something the Sixers can be talking about, especially when they outshot the Knicks 34-17 on free throws last game, including 4 from Mitch that were intentional. And I think, again, I don't know the final numbers, but they were very close today, while the Sixers were intentionally fouling towards the end. So I just don't really think that the fouls or the refs are much of an issue this series, although I do think the refs were pretty rough today on both sides. I don't think they gave either team an advantage, but I don't think they were very good.
So I don't know that I'm totally with you guys on Tyrese Maxey and his complaining, because I feel like everybody put their hands up when they get to the basket and don't get a call, and Brunson was doing that tonight. I think that Embiid is a big complainer, and complaining is really annoying, but my thing with Josh Hart's complaining is you got to make your complaints count. And by picking up that tech early in the game, he wasted words that he could get later in the game on far better opportunities to get a word in. So, it's like using challenges. You got to use them at the right time. You can't burn them early. And that's the same thing with complaints. And that's what we saw tonight. But I have one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just one more thing I wanted to cover before we get on to the next topic was that I thought that tonight the Sixers made way quicker decisions, and I think that was something especially Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Kelly Oubre Jr. did tonight. And I think that Embiid, a big problem with what happened in Game 1 was that he was stopping the ball, and it was very slow synthesizing, and I think that really affected the flow of the offense.
No, I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of questions if the team is definitely more fun to watch without Embiid. That's a given, but I think it's up for debate if the team is better without Embiid. And I think that we can all agree from what we've seen. I think even in the first round, I know that when Embiid came back, it was 2-1. But if you look back at Game 3 that the Sixers lost to the Celtics, they were by far the better team. Peyton Pritchard just hit 2 crazy step backs in the fourth quarter, but they had a great chance of being up 2-1 in that series without Embiid. But I think we can wrap it there for the Knicks topics. Before we move on to the other series, I want you guys to give me your predictions for games 3 and 4, game by game. Which one do we win? Which one do we lose? Do we sweep them?
I think, well, before I give my predictions, I just want to talk about towards the end of the third quarter when Towns picked up his fourth foul. You could very audibly hear him scream, "Mike, no," a couple times because he did not want to come out of the game. I just thought that was pretty funny. But on to 3 and 4, I think we split. I think there's going to be, it depends to me when Embiid comes back. I think Embiid's first game back, he's going to be energized. He's going to be trying his hardest to be ignoring the pain. I don't think that we'll be able to attack him the way we did game 1. I think he'll probably be on some sort of horse tranquilizer or something. But I think that'll last maybe a game out of Embiid until he realizes that his body is just not able to keep up with what he wants to do. But I just don't see a sweep. I can't see a sweep with the way that these Knicks have played in the playoffs these last however many years. I don't think have we won a series in less than 6 games since we got Brunson?
Yes, against the Sixers.
Yes, against the Sixers. I think it goes 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay conservative and say 5 as well for similar reasons. I think that the Sixers' best chance at winning any game this series is in Game 3. Coming out of, they get 2 days of rest in between, right? So they'll get an extra day for Embiid to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone know?
Not that it's that grueling of a trip to Philly and New York, is it?
I think next game is Friday. I don't think that there's 2 games of rest unless we go to 7, which I
Wow.
really don't
Okay,
think
so never mind. But still, I would think that the next game that Joel Embiid plays is probably going to be him leaving everything he's got on the court.
Yeah, I agree.
So
we all
one
have
interesting
Knicks
thing I
in mind.
wanted to tell everyone, yes, we do. But one thing I wanted to let everyone know is that I checked DraftKings odds going into tonight, and the Knicks were plus 800 to win the championship. And after tonight's victory, they improved to plus 750.
Well, do we have a stat for what it was at the start of the playoffs?
No, I
They're
think
probably
it
over
was
1,000, no?
maybe. I think it was like 1,600 maybe, but I could totally be off the mark.
1,600 seems kind of rough. I mean, I guess Boston were favorites to come out of the East, but still.
I think
think the
Boston
Knicks were-
was a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wonder what the odds were after the Knicks went down 2-1 in the first round. That was
I know
when
what
you
the
had to put
odds
your money on
were.
it.
Actually, I don't know what the odds were for them to win the championship, but I know that the odds were somewhere between plus 100 to plus 105 for the Knicks to win the series. So sportsbooks came out and told us, hey, it's the Hawks series to lose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
To be fair,
Is that
the
all?
way that they
Is that,
played. Sorry,
yeah. No, go on. Go on.
but to be fair, the way the Knicks played in those first 3 games, I really don't hate those odds. I still think the Knicks should have been the favorites, but overall, there wasn't much promise.
I mean, it's crazy that if we went back 10 days, people would be calling for Mike Brown to be fired, blow the Knicks core up. You can't win with Brunson as a number 1 option. And it's just how quick things change in the playoffs. I think
Yeah, same
that's
thing
what
with
people
Detroit.
always. Mm-hmm. But
Sorry, just wanted to
Detroit is fundamentally flawed.
I agree. yeah.
Detroit, maybe this is a good segue. Let's use this as a good segue. We're done talking about games 3 and 4. Let's use this as a good segue to spend 15 minutes talking about the other series. We can start with Detroit, and Cleveland. I think that Detroit is just fundamentally flawed. Their entire lineup, I don't think it makes much basketball sense. They want to be this super high, physical, aggressive team, and they want to run everything through Cade. Cade just not an efficient enough player as a number 1 option where you can have. I mean, they can make the Eastern Conference Finals this year, so maybe they can have success. But you saw how he was bothered by Franz Wagner in the first round. If he doesn't get injured, the Pistons are done to the Magic, to a dysfunctional Magic team. But that's why I think Cleveland are winning this series in 6, even after game 1.
So I'll weigh in real quickly. So the Knicks are actually the odds-on favorite to win the Eastern Conference at minus 115, and the Pistons are at plus 210, which isn't bad, but I agree that I don't think that where Cade Cunningham is right now, that a heliocentric offense around someone that turns the ball over rather frequently and is not an elite scorer from around the basket other than when he gets to the line, is suited to lead an otherwise poor offensive team to a championship.
I think the Knicks, out of all teams, and again, this is still about the Pistons and Cavs, I think the Knicks have the least weaknesses out of every team left. I think there's just very glaring weaknesses with all the other teams. Harden is not a good playoff performer, and Donovan Mitchell has not had a good playoffs either. As far as that series, I really don't know. Cade, it depends how many times he turns the ball over, honestly. I feel like that's a very big indicator of how good the Pistons are going to do. If he ends up with 6 or more turnovers, I think the Pistons have a very tough time winning, especially with how bad Jalen Duren's been playing. 4 of 11, I think, last game against the Cavs, and just a pretty bad first round overall. Not much shooting for them. I really don't know which team I would rather play, because I think either team we have a pretty easy time with.
The thing that gives me some Cavs optimism, especially in this series, was watching game 1. The Cavs, much like the Knicks today, played a bad game, except they didn't win, but they played a very poor game, and it was tied with like 6 minutes to go. And when you have a team with the Pistons that literally have no secondary creation, their best secondary option is Tobias Harris, and Tobias Harris low-key bailed them out in round 1. But imagine if you're playing the Pistons and you have either Mikal on Cade and OG on Tobias, or the other way around. The Pistons just have no way. They're just drawing blank, especially with Jalen Duren. That guy has probably lost himself at least $50 million on his next contract these playoffs, because he might make All NBA second team. He probably will finish on All NBA third team, but he's gonna make All NBA. And when you're watching him in the playoffs get outplayed by Wendell Carter Jr., I think that the Pistons' just fundamental roster construction is just so flawed that I wouldn't even worry about them from a Knicks perspective.
Yeah, my opinion taking a look at that Detroit against Cleveland series, I'm picking Detroit in 6, because I think ultimately with your 2 best scorers as Detroit being Cade Cunningham and Tobias Harris right now in that series. Sorry, Jalen Duren. Sorry, honorary mention to a couple other Pistons in there. But those 2 guys have to be guarded by the likes of, I don't know, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Max Strus. There's a bunch of guys that are just not ideally suited to guard them, and it puts them in a really difficult spot.
So okay, I have Cavs in 6. Myles has Detroit in 6. Perry, what do you have?
I think Detroit wins this one. I'd say 7. I think this one goes the distance. I also don't really want to judge too much off of one game, considering the fact that both teams just played 7-game series against 2 very hard-nosed, grinding teams. So I would like to see a little bit more out of both teams, but I do right now want to say Pistons in 7.
Okay, I think we can go on to the West more so briefly, and we don't need to touch on it too far. I'm looking at the score right now, and the Spurs are demolishing the Timberwolves. They're up by 22 in the third quarter. Wemby has 14 and 12. But what do you guys think of that series? I have my own opinion on Wemby and the Spurs, but I'll let you guys start before I get into some egregious takes.
I am really excited to hear your takes, because I'm pretty sure I know what they are. I think the Wolves have a very difficult decision, offense-defense based, because Gobert, especially in game 1, did a very good job on Wemby. But him being in the game also allows Wemby to do a very good job on everybody else on defense. But we did see Naz Reid have a little bit of success spreading out the Spurs defense and Wemby. So I think Minnesota just has to decide which one they value more between Gobert's defense and Naz's floor spacing ability. I think Naz was 2 for 3 from 3 last game. I think both of those teams and OKC, I honestly could realistically see all of them making the finals. I think with OKC as a pretty clear favorite out of the 3. But I think there definitely is much more parity in the West than there is in the East. Not even going to mention the Lakers, really, especially without Luka. I think with Luka, there are 4 very good teams in the West.
I think with Luka and no J-Dub, I think that we could have been looking at a decently lengthy series. But if you had to, it's going to be 1-1 going into Game 3 in Minnesota, what would you pick now for the rest of the series, Perry? And then Myles, I don't want to hear your opinion too.
I think depends a lot on Anthony Edwards and how healthy he can get and how effective he can be. Right now he has 8 points on 3 for 10 shooting, only playing 17 minutes so far. I think I'm going to give it to the Spurs. And then I think the Spurs lose to the Thunder, and I'd say 6. I think just because of Wemby, I'm not really worried about, but the rest of the younger guys with such a lack of experience against a team that, although they beat them 3 or 4 times in the regular season, I think the Thunder are a better team. I don't see the Spurs upsetting them. I think pretty much as I said, there's a lot of parity in the West. I think pretty much everything is leading to a Knicks Thunder finals, which I'm going to be completely honest, I am not as scared of the Thunder as most people I'd assume would expect most Knicks fans to be. I do think the Thunder are a better team, and I think they're the best team in the league. I just don't think that they're as unbeatable as people are saying.
Especially with Jacob's hamstring.
Yeah, I mean, he really
Myles?
wasn't shooting the three ball very well this year to begin with. But the OKC and the Knicks are similar in the sense that they're very well-rounded teams, but the Knicks' deficiency is that their point guard is rather small, and historically, Karl Anthony Towns hasn't moved that well on his feet, although what we're seeing now seems to be shattering the expectations that we'd previously set for him. But I want to dive back into that Minnesota against San Antonio series because I know it's a 22, 24-point game, whatever it is now. It's still early in the third quarter. I'm not ready to write Minnesota off, but let's say hypothetically that San Antonio does pull this out and even up the series at 1-1. If that happens, I got Spurs in 6. If that doesn't happen, I got Spurs in 7. So we'll see. Ultimately, I'd be way more excited about this series if we had a healthy DiVincenzo, a healthy Ayo Dosunmu, two guys who were shooting the absolute heck out of the basketball all year long. But unfortunately, stuff happens, guys get hurt, and we're not getting to see those two key players in this series.
Just very briefly, before we get on to the bigger point about injuries, because it seems like a lot of the times in NBA history, the team that's the healthiest is going to end up winning the championship. I think this year could be another case where if you're just healthy and you have all your players playing the right way and at the right time, you have a great chance. I think in the Minnesota series, I was very big on the Timberwolves all season because I'm one of the people that believe that people would say that they made the Western Conference Finals by fluke. You don't make two Western Conference Finals back-to-back by fluke without having a strong system in place and without having a strong play style in place. Especially that Thunder series, people forget Game 4 in Minnesota, it was a 2-point game. The Thunder could have been going back into Game 5 at the 2-2 series, and then they probably don't blow them out by 40 in Game 5. I think, and this is very predetermined on how Ayo Dosunmu looks coming back from injury, because I know calf strains aren't ones to, mess around with, but I think if it's going to be 1-1 going into Minnesota, I just think Ayo Dosunmu is going to play. I know he's in a contract year and he's, there's some people that say he shouldn't play, but I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to want to play because I genuinely think the Timberwolves have a great chance at beating the Spurs. I think if I had to make a serious prediction right now, I would pick Wolves in 7. I think this series is going 7, and then Game 7 will be a sort of a war attrition, and I just like Anthony Edwards as a closer in Game 7. I think he's done it before. I go back to 2024 when in Denver, Anthony Edwards led a 15-point comeback and got the Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals. So I would pick the Wolves in 7. I think the Spurs, I'm not going to touch too much on Wemby because I really dislike how people overhype him. He's a generational talent, one of the best players in the league, a top 5 player in the NBA right now. But people are so quick to say that he should already be, and that he was better than LeBron at this age, that he was better than Jordan at this age, which fundamentally might be true. I don't know about LeBron, but he's definitely up there. But I think we should just calm down on, these sort of historic comparisons. But I think the thing about the Spurs that really interests me is that they low-key did the league a bit of a favor maxing De'Aaron Fox, because that's going to be a contract that I don't think is going to age well. And especially with how good their young guards are, if they had invested that money into like a super, super great wing, sort of like OG Anunoby, imagine if they, instead of De'Aaron Fox, they had someone like OG. I think they'd be a lot scarier. But yeah, I have Timberwolves in 7.
Lauri Markkanen is one name that came to mind when I was thinking about perfect fits to play in that San Antonio Spurs offense. It's very redundant having 3 point guards that are lead ball handlers that are not great shooters, even though I think Stephon Castle wound up shooting a pretty respectable percentage from 3 this year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Let me check. Or actually, it might have fallen off. I'm not sure.
I think he was quite mid. Like, he wasn't a bad shooter, but I don't think he's going to be guarded much in the later rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, so his 3-point percentage dropped all the way to 33%. And so, yeah, that makes 3 guards that are not exactly spectacular shooters, but everyone knows I'm a Rutgers Scarlet Knights homer. Let me just say, watching what I watched out of Dylan Harper in college and at the NBA, I can unequivocally say this is one of the few guys that when I watch play basketball, it screams can't miss star. And the percentage that he shoots at the rim, it drove me crazy, the comparison everyone was making between Cade Cunningham and him, because Cade Cunningham has a nice little diet of mid-range jump shots using his length to shoot over you, but Dylan Harper hangs up in the air. He has all this he uses his dexterity to spin the ball at the basket, to slither through creases. Like, the only guy that we see that from is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Okay. So just to summarize, Harry has Spurs in 6. Myles has Spurs in 6 too, because I presume a 25-point game
Yeah.
or 24-point game is not going to be turned around. And I have Wolves in 7.
But
last series,
let me just make one shout out, Daniel.
Yes.
Before we get out of this Timberwolves talk, I just want to give a quick shout out to both the Minnesota Timberwolves for them picking them guards from Illinois between Ayo Dosunmu and Terrence Shannon Jr., and give a shout out to Terrence Shannon Jr. for that rim pressure that he put on the series in the Denver series. And it just sucks that in the time that Dosunmu and DiVincenzo, two of the best current 3-point shooters right now for the Timberwolves, are missing at a time when this rim pressure is facing a 7-7 demon.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jaden McDaniel also deserves a little bit of mention.
Oh yeah,
wait,
definitely.
Sorry, just last thing I wanted to touch on that. What did you think of Wemby getting 12 blocks? 12 fraudulent blocks, I might add, but I'm going to leave my bias out of it.
There were a couple of missed goaltends, a couple of missed fouls. I think
How many legitimate blocks did he have? Just tell me a number. How many legitimate blocks do you think he had?
I saw a video of some guy breaking it down. He said 8 legitimate blocks. I think it was 7. There was also a block that Harrison Barnes just fully got, and then Wemby tipped it a second time, and they gave that block to Wemby.
There was that one that went off the backboard. Like, it was insane. It literally, like, the ref was looking at the ball, saw it hit the backboard, saw Wemby touch it after, and just didn't decide to call it. But that's all I wanted to mention. Do you want to talk about the Thunder Lakers series at all for a couple minutes? Because I think that the series should be quite quick, especially with no Luka. I think the Thunder in Game 1 didn't play very well, and especially SGA, and they still blew him out by 18. I just think that the Thunder depth in these playoffs is just when you have a player like J-Dub who's made All NBA before go down, and you just have players that like AJ Mitchell that can step up into a secondary option scoring. And with how good Chet has been these playoffs, I don't think the series is going very far.
Yeah, I don't think this one's going to be close. LeBron's still LeBron. We saw it in the first round. He played great. But outside of that, Austin Reeves has always struggled against bigger physical defenders, and the Thunder have more than enough guys like that to slow him down, and there really just isn't much else for the Lakers. DeAndre Ayton's had a good playoffs. So was Marcus Smart. Luke Kennard had a couple of good games, but none of that is enough to beat the Thunder. I think the Lakers could maybe squeeze out one game, but overall, I see a Thunder sweep.
Yeah. I also see a Thunder sweep. And my first impression of Austin Reeves was him playing for Oklahoma. I remember him torching the undefeated Jalen Suggs Gonzaga team, and I remember him having a really beautiful up and under layup. And I was like, wow, this guy can really score. For some reason, I didn't have the foresight to realize what a great scorer he'd become someday, but he really has not looked like himself since coming back from that injury. And on a team that is already lacking the point of attack defenders that they need to make a competitive series happen against OKC, having one of your best players who has to be on the court be struggling, just overall catching up to NBA game speed, I just don't think that the Lakers can put up more than 4 to 5 games tops in this series, and I'm sticking with OKC in 4.
So we heard it here first. Thunder Knicks finals. Mark it down. Bet it. Bet all your money on it. Don't do that. We don't promote gambling on this show. But is there anything else you guys want to mention before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I'm just going to say thank you, and I hope everyone who's listening is enjoying. And I just want to leave everyone with saying go Knicks, and hopefully that the next time we hear from each other, we'll be looking at a 3-0 lead.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed a little switch up on the podcast today. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough for us to come and do this again. And hopefully we'll see you guys again.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mark and Jay, for letting us do this trial episode. Like I said before, feedback to the email or the comment section, NewYorkKnicksPodcast@gmail.com, or in the comments on Spotify if you listen to Spotify. And I think we all really enjoyed talking about the Knicks, and I think the Knicks are in a really good place to go to the finals. So I think that's all for us, right, guys?
Yeah, actually, one more thing. Let's keep an eye on OG Anunoby's health after he came out of the game. So hopefully we get good news on that. But other than that,
here's to OG. Prayers to OG. All right. See you guys.
Bye, bye, love. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. It's all over. Goodbye. It's time to go. This is the end.